Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are delighted that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. Today our guests are Shawn O'Reilly and Dave Alvarez, celebrating Randolph the Reindeer. Before we invite Shawn and Dave in to continue our celebration of graphic novels, comic books, and illustrated stories, we want to let you know that there's still just a couple of more days left for you to download your free digital version of The Stardust Mysteries by Dr. Peter Solomon. Now, in a few weeks, we'll have Dr. Solomon on the show to talk about the Stardust Mysteries, and we're really excited because this book is a really fun way for families to talk together about science and about the universe and about discovery. And for a limited time only, if you are listening to this show when we publish it at the end of November 2020, you have like today and tomorrow to request a free digital version of the Stardust Mystery. All you need to do is to send an email to education@thebeamer.com. That's education@thebeamer. That's THEBEAMER.com. Be sure to write Jedley in the subject line, and Dr. Peter will be sure to send you the Stardust Mysteries. What a wonderful opportunity. Get yours today, a free digital version of the Stardust Mysteries. Joining us right now from Coquitlam and British Columbia and Caguas and Puerto Rico, we have two great guests, Shawn O'Reilly and David Alvarez, here to celebrate Randolph the Reindeer. Shawn, Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you. This is awesome.
Thank you for inviting us.
You're welcome. The first voice you heard was Shawn, who is coming to us from British Columbia. And the second voice, Dave, down in Puerto Rico. Shawn, why don't we start with you? Can you tell us all about Randolph the Reindeer?
Sure. Randolph was a story I wanted to tell because usually it's always saving Christmas. Christmas is somehow always in jeopardy every year. And Randolph's similar, but it's not about Christmas in general. It's about Christmas for one family. And so Rudolph, he got the glory. He won. Everyone knows him. He's famous. Poor Randolph. Whereas Rudolph won, Randolph's a loser. He didn't make the sleigh cut. And I think there's always something that everyone can kind of relate to, because there's only one winner. And the rest of us, we got to move on with life. And that's kind of Randolph's story. And he gets a second shot much later in life, shot of redemption.
That's really, really cool. I certainly can relate to Randolph. I made a couple of teams, but never was that guy, never was the star.
Very few are. Only one is.
That's
right.
That's right.
That's the thing.
That's right.
It's relatable.
So, Dave, down in Caguas, there's not a whole lot of reindeer flying around Caguas.
Not at all. Not at all. I've never even been close to one.
Well, my wife went to Finland last year with her school as an educational experience, and they were serving reindeer in one of the restaurants they went to.
Wow!
Oh, you were really close.
So tell us that this collaboration. British Columbia and Puerto Rico. How did you guys come together to create Randolph the Reindeer?
I think it was actually Ross Ritchie from Boom Studios. He says, I'm doing a lot of animation these days, and he sent me Dave's work. And the second I saw it, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. And then it was one of those things that kind of stayed on my radar for a little bit. I really, really wanted to work with him. And it was just a matter of waiting till the right project came up. Randolph is something, like I said, I've been kind of noodling with. Finally found time to write it. Sent it to Dave to kind of sketch it out, and it was love at first sketch. The very first image I saw, it was fantastic, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Let's do this.
What did you use for inspiration in creating Randolph, Dave?
Well, as a matter of fact, since I haven't been that close to a reindeer, I started looking over for inspiration around, because I started looking at pictures of actual reindeers, because one of the things that really baffled my mind was, there's always this thing about Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer when they don't have a nose, actually. They just have like a muzzle. So I was like, why? What does he have a nose? So, well, okay, then don't worry. So I set it up like that, by sketching a real reindeer, how a real reindeer will look. And since the concept that Shawn brought was not a loser reindeer, but maybe the reindeer that didn't make it. So he needed to look, very general, very like everyone else, that he doesn't stand out from anybody. He's just an average reindeer. So I drew an average reindeer. So I sent it over to Shawn, and he liked it. So that's a very good thing.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Really cool. Now, Shawn, you are involved in a lot of really great projects. Your studio, Arcana Studios. I'm on your website, and I'm kind of blown away. Tell us a little bit about what you've done in the past, please.
Sure. So Arcana Publishing started in 2003. We've published 300 books. The book market has changed a lot over the last 17 years. It's become, honestly, a lot more difficult, I have found. Diamond Comics has changed. When I started, there was multiple distributors. And weirdly, there's actually multiple distributors today. If you're following in comic books and the distribution, I made the big leap in around 2012. We had our first funded animation series called Kagagi, based on a graphic novel we had done by an amazing artist named Jay Ojic. And so it took us about 2 years. That went on air on APTN in, I think it was November 2014. And then we did Pixies in 2015, and that was a feature film, and it had Christopher Plummer, Bill Paxton, Alexa Vega. That was the first one of 8 animated feature films from 2015 to 2020. Actually 2019. The 8th one is called Go Fish. Came out through Lionsgate last year, and I'm in production on our 9th feature called Heroes of the Golden Masks. Also Christopher Plummer, Ron Perlman. We just announced Patton Oswalt and Byron Mann as part of our voice. And then I have a 10th one in pre-production, a series called My Brother the Monster, and a series called Go Fish. So we're prolific.
Yeah. How do you keep all these plates spinning?
I love it. You know what's funny? That's actually my joke, for real. My joke is I keep 10 plates spinning, so one of them has my dinner on it. And you have to kind of, like in Hollywood, you kind of juggle. You have, like right now, we have a Christmas book, Randolph the Reindeer, coming out in December. And, we started slowly, like I had to apply for Diamond, I think it was in June, to get a DCD number. And once you get that, then we start marketing the book in October. Books have been shipped. I think they arrive, I think it's November 19th in local comic shops. And Randolph's one of those ones, when we publish a book, to be brutally honest, day one, you're way in the hole. Mm-hmm. And then you slowly hope to climb out of the hole. But, in terms of financial, obligations. But the thing is, I've done enough of these movies and series. One of them hits, and it's not even close to a hole. It's a success. Mm-hmm. And so you're, and it doesn't always have to be that way. I love a good book, kind of like Alan Moore, that can stand on its own. And that's fantastic. But boy, is it hard to do. Unless you're Alan Moore, it's a very big challenge. So a lot of companies need to look at the entire intellectual property and figure out how to monetize and make money from things.
Yeah. Dave, was there a lot of pressure? Was Shawn a tough taskmaster?
Well, Shawn, actually, I like working with him because he leaves a lot of creative space for you to work. So when we started working on the book, I basically, he's very, but when he writes, he's very specific. And at the same time, it's writing that allows you to create as well. So it was like, it was a good collaboration. So when we started working together, I think it was one of those rare moments when everything goes smooth. And it was like, well, it worked. It was fine. And all of a sudden, a couple of weeks, the book was done. And, well, actually, like a couple of weeks, I think it took more. But yeah, it was a great collaboration. And I think the book reflects that itself, because you can see on the book, the complete book, that there was a lot of effort put in those on everything, in the writing, in the art, and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing, if you ask me.
Yeah. I love your kind of attitude. Hey, we came together and it worked. That was nice. It was a nice surprise.
It was a nice surprise. Yeah,
it's one of those things, because you hear about the Stan Lee way of writing, and you read other writers, and they're very heavy-handed, and they start to lay out the page almost for the artist. And then Stan Lee, apparently, when he wrote, he had he had a storyline. And then usually Kirby or whoever would kind of figure out the tempo and the thing, and other artists or other writers talk panel by panel exactly what they want. I think I'm somewhere in between. Because I don't want to handcuff Dave. I mean, Dave's fantastic and it's exciting. It's like Christmas all the time. Not only a Christmas book, but Christmas presents. You'd get a new page and email. It's like, yes. And so it's honestly very exciting. I do love the process, and that's why, books are challenging, but I still do them. I do love the process. I believe in them. And this Christmas, a lot of my friends, they have kids now, and I'm quite excited to hand those out as presents this Christmas. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Did the story change as the pictures and the illustrations were coming in? Was David sending you things that kind of sparked an idea in your head and go, oh, we can kind of shift and go a little bit this way?
Not only did it change, it enhanced. It was fantastic. Honestly, I came in and I'm like, oh, that's what I wanted. There you go. That's the heart of it. And it was funny because, I even noticed now. So this is the first interview podcast Dave and I have done, and I noticed you don't like the L word, and it's a tough word, the loser word, and it's one of those ones. It's because and I have a lot of humility, and I have failed a lot. Let me tell you. So, and it's funny. It's one of those things, and kind of we said at the beginning, you have the pinnacle, you have the gold medal winner, and I think that's awesome to cheer those people on. But there's just so few. I mean, a lot of us can do really good in the world and make an impact. No spoiler alert, but Randolph just might. I mean, he strives to do it. It just the very first time many moons ago, he didn't. And so, we want to strive to be our personal best. Might not be the best across the board. We might not be at the top of the podium, but at least you can strive to do your own personal best.
That's fantastic, and a great message to share with kids, and a great message for families to talk about. I'm just wondering, on a personal level, Puerto Rico has played such an important part in my life. Was there any? Did you add a little bit of Puerto Rican spice to your illustrations, Dave?
They always do. There's always some hidden reference. But one of the things was I do travel from time to time, so I was trying to bring my own experiences to the character, which is another thing. I don't like just to draw. I like to create characters. I like to develop characters. And Randolph, it's a character, and everything that surrounds him has to be a character as well. So it needs to have some personality. And in order for that to work, I need to inject a little bit of my own experience. So there was some certain things I won't spoil anything, but there was a lot of cold happening. There was snow, there was cold, and I had to transport myself, coming from a tropical place like Puerto Rico, And the first time that I traveled to the United States, it was like living inside a fridge. So, I had to bring that feeling to the character. You know, when Randall was feeling cold, he was really feeling cold. That when he finds another character on the road that offers him some covering and some stuff, I remember myself the first time that I visited New York, and I was like that. You know, I traveled from Puerto Rico, just like I had shorts and tank top. Let's go there. I got this first slap on the face of cold, and I have everything inside my bag. So in the middle of the airport, I have to put everything on, and I looked at the Christmas tree when I went out to take out the first taxi. So I brought that to the character as well. So when they're feeling cold, they're feeling like the way I did when I first visited the United States. So that adds a little bit of something there.
Yeah. Shawn, you mentioned earlier that comics and animation has changed over the years. One of the things that's changed when I was growing up 100 years ago, and you watching Bugs Bunny, you had one voice actor voice most of the characters, Mel Blanc, and he did all these amazing voices. Now we've gone away from that, and we're getting stars, movie stars that are voicing characters. Why do you think that shift happened? And do you think it was a good thing or not so much of a good thing?
Interesting. I think one of the shifts might have been from, and I like to call us animation, and cartoons were the ones back in the day. And the cartoon one was, pure comedy. And it was Bugs Bunny. It was usually slapstick, Tom and Jerry. And Dave, I tell you, his Warner Brothers stuff, his Bugs Bunny, I'm on his Facebook feed, A+. It's on point. And,
Thank you.
Yeah, Dave actually did a Baby Yoda. And he made it look like Chuck Jones. Right? It was a Chuck Jones inspired Baby Yoda. So I bought one of those shirts, and one for me and one for my wife. And I love, and so it's not to say that, animation versus cartoons, and it's just how I've defined things. But I love the cartoons. I love that style. And then in animation, you can start to do things maybe like, Frozen. Or you can do, whatever, Taken Away or Up. Obviously, the opening of Up is just like, that's just good content. No matter what you watch, the opening 7 minutes or whatever it is just, it's hard not to well up during that. And so exactly. And so I think during those times, and you're trying to make animation maybe an event, a big spectacle, it kind of helps to bring in some of the celebrity names. Makes it maybe a little bit more gravitas. So I think that's kind of the shift. And from comics, it's just challenging, I think, because now you're also competing with, the almighty device, the mobile phone, especially for kids. They can play, Angry Birds for free. They get TikTok for free. You're just competing with their attention. I think to be even a linear television channel, Nickelodeon or whoever, you're just, kid only has so many hours in a day and you're now competing with the phone and the games and the TikToking and social media and then linear and then movie. And it's like, comic books, where and how do they fall into a kid's life? Because especially during COVID, no one's walking into your local store and browsing and taking their time. So, I think there's definitely shifts, and big one. Was it yesterday? 2 days ago? Disney said their primary focus will be streaming video on demand content. And for Disney years, it's always been, feature films. And they still own Marvel, and they own Pixar, and they own Star Wars. And yet, in the same time, they said they've reorganized the entire Disney company, and they're going to focus on their Disney Plus streaming platform, which is, I think, a sign of the times a little bit.
Yeah. Fascinating. Where I think the pandemic has pushed a lot of the entertainment industry to take a look at itself and to change, and it's going to be interesting how everything works out.
Yeah,
that's true.
Dave, you've been involved in a lot of great things. Shawn touched on a couple of them. Do you have a favorite other than Randolph? Because I understand that's your favorite project. But is there, other than Randolph, is there a favorite character that you've worked on or character that you've created?
Well, I have a few characters I have created and I have starting to develop. And I always feel at home when I'm working with my own characters, of course. And even though I have worked with a lot of characters, I have done work for Warner Bros., for Looney Tunes, for Disney, and a lot of stuff. Nickelodeon and SpongeBob. But every time I go back to my own characters, for example, let's say Shanghai, Yanni, or recently with a character that I've been developing called Kodo. So, but that for some reason it really catch up on the internet. So I feel really at home with that concept because it reflects a lot of me. It reflects a lot of my cartoon fandom that I have in me. So yeah, I really enjoy that. And of course Randolph. You know, one of the things that now that you mentioned Randolph, my kid, my baby, he likes reading that book. And we started reading Randolph the other night, and he was like all the time looking at the book. So every time I develop a character, every time I create something, I pass it along to my kids. So if for some reason they get caught up with the character or something like that, it works. So that's kind of my testing ground every time that I do something. And with Randolph and recently with Kodo as well, it has been catching up with my kids. So it's something like, okay, this is going to work. So it's my own marketing studio, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And then how old? I didn't even. How old is your kid?
3 years old.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
3 years old. I had two more, which one 16 and the other 12.
Yeah.
So they all very different one from the other. So that when I grab the attention of the three, it's it's something that will work actually.
Yeah.
And it's funny. So like I have 4 kids. So I have a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, and 2 11s. So Dave and I have a lot of kids. That's
yeah.
We have our own test audience.
It is great. It is great to have that test audience. My kids are 24 and 27, so they're a little bit out of the demo. But I know my son, and this is one of the things I just want to touch on because you've been involved in a lot of comics, both of you. But one of the things that I love to kind of stress and remind parents is because I didn't appreciate it. My son loves comics, and in fact, he's married now. He has his own place, but we still have a lot of the comic collection here because we have the bigger house. I didn't appreciate enough the fact that when he was reading comics, he was reading. And he was reading full stories with great vocabulary, great action, and I didn't give the comics enough credit. I've said this so many times on the show. I have this memory, I would buy him the comics and support that. But I do remember going into his room more than one time looking and saying, would you please read at least one book without a picture in it? But I want to stress, and Shawn, you can help too, just stress to parents out there that if their kids are reading graphic novels and they're reading comics, that they are reading, and that's something to celebrate.
100%, especially it's kind of funny. Back in the day, the funny pages, and you got these picture books. I think over the last, 13 years, whenever Iron Man came out, the entire MCU, what we've seen develop there, is just, I think, unbelievable. And so much content from Umbrella Academy to The Boys. I mean, it transcends genre. It hits everything. It doesn't have to be capes and superheroes, but there's just so much inspiration from graphic novels, and I think as a creator, you're almost boundless. I mean, even with the advancements in technology and Blender and Maya and visual effects and all these programs, a comic book is one of those nice places you have to spend time, but it's not like you need physical, there's not a lot of physical limitations outside of time. You don't need to build a set or to have the visual effect look a certain way, and it costs a lot of money, or create a CGI version of The Rock so you can do something crazy. You can just draw, and your imagination can just go absolutely, off the chart. And I think that imagination is finally being adapted into some of the, the top series and top movies and top animation we're watching. And so for me, as a creator, I think comic books are still an absolutely awesome area. And anyone that can recommend to their kids to just tap into some of that imagination, some of those bright ideas, some of those fantastic stories. Might have pictures on them, and that can help it, but the imagination truly is boundless. Yeah. I believe in comic books.
Yeah, and if your kid is struggling, if is struggling with dyslexia, he or she is a reluctant reader. Reading a comic can give additional clues. We help kids learn context clues to help them understand the vocabulary that they're not familiar with. A picture book just gives them added clues and could be the key in helping them develop a love of reading. So it's not so much a chore as it is something that they do and find joy in.
Totally, and those little visual cues.
Hey,
yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'm having a blast speaking with you guys, but I know folks are going to want to know where they can find out more about all the work that both of you are doing. So, David, tell us where folks can go online to find out more about what Dave Alvarez is all about.
Well, I'm almost everywhere on the social media, but you can find my stuff on www.dascomics.com. That's dascomics.com.
Awesome. And Shawn O'Reilly, please tell everybody where they can find out more about all the amazing things that you're involved with.
Sure. Arcana.com, ARCANA.com, Arcana.com. As well, I'm on the Diamond Comics website. So it says it's in shops November 4th, 2020. That's Randolph the Reindeer in shops November 4th. And there's a thing called a DCD code. It's kind of like a UPC code at the back. And it's September 201107.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the creators of Randolph the Reindeer, Shawn O'Reilly and Dave Alvarez. Hey, thank you both guys. I had a blast speaking with you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Same here.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Daniel Jude Miller. He's returning to the show to celebrate a brand new picture book, Halloween Boy and the Christmas Kid. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on the show. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it doesn't cost you a thing to let thousands of people know about your fantastic book. All you need to do is go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to find out how to be a guest. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our guests, Shawn O'Reilly and Dave Alvarez. Be sure to check out Randolph the Reindeer. Also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank Augie the doggy for having my back here in the studio. But most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.